Hello and welcome to another Comics Burst from the Full Force podcast, sponsored by Distant Planet Comics and Collectibles, where we take an in-depth look at the newest G.I. Joe comics and related titles of the week. With me as your host, Chris Dunvegan Castlefall McLeod, aka Diagnostic 80. That's a McLeod joke, by the way. And joining me for this episode is Brian, whatever castle houses the Blarney Stone, hint, it's Blarney Castlefall, Hickey. On this instalment of your absolutely favourite kind of burst, we look at the special one-shot G.I. Joe, Castlefall, from Paul Aller. So without further ado, let's get stuck in, shall we? Bit of castle jokes for Castlefall.
I like that.
It's gone right over people's heads, that one. The past year of G.I. Joe leads to this. The Joes aim to topple Cobra by turning their own assets against them, but Cobra strikes first at Joe leadership from the inside. Twists, turns, and massive amounts of action make this a G.I. Joe event not to be missed. And the actual issue inside the description says, Cobra has taken command of the world to fight back. G.I. Joe recruits civilians, training them as spies, assassins, and saboteurs. Recently, G.I. Joe recruit Lady J completed a long-term undercover operation, gathering information about the Cobra scientist Dr. Mindbender. Meanwhile, it's been a year since G.I. Joe leader Duke was killed in action by the notorious Major Blood, or Bloody Smalls, or Bloody, if I continue along this hip-hop path of the notorious Major Blood. The creative team is writer Paul Aller, artist Chris Evenhouse, colours Brittany Peer, letters Neil Uyatake, and editor Bobby Kernow. And let's get stuck in then, Brian, with this cracking one-shot. And we'll start with the cover A on this one and delve into that first. We have a Chris Evenhouse classic. It's Roadblock on the cover with the Marduce in hand. Something, again, that happens in this issue, so it's nice to see that happening on this cover.
Absolutely. I mean, this was in the last comic that we got for this run. This cover was kind of teased at, so you didn't quite see the full Marduce. You just got a sense that Roadblock was kind of holding something. And then, obviously, now we have the reveal, and it's the Marduce. It's like, yes!
Very cool.
These characters have had these, in some cases, a major departure from their 1980s counterparts. So this is obviously like a major kind of link up with that kind of Roadblock character. And of course, the context for all of this happens within the story. And we're going to get to that in a few minutes, but it's one of the most badass scenes in G.I. Joe ever, in my opinion.
Big time. There are only 2 covers for this one. You'd think like it's a one-off, kind of one-shot. It's effectively story-wise kind of tying up a lot of loose ends, setting up a possible kind of development and progression into what would be a different storyline going forward. So you think you'd have a bit more pomp and ceremony, but we do get this very beautiful cover, and we've had Freddie Williams II and Jeremy Colwell on multiple issues of Transformers Terminator, a lot of the Transformers covers, a lot of the Paul Aller run. We've had Freddie Williams II kind of doing his best, and this is another beauty, isn't it? And we've got like this very interesting scene that doesn't actually happen in the issue, but you get the feeling that this is from like a previous mission, or maybe even a future mission that hasn't happened yet, where we've got Tiger, Scarlet, and Fadeaway. They're all kind of like creeping in the foreground. They're behind, like hiding behind this, machinery and vehicles where they're clearly at a Cobra installation, because through the gap that you can kind of make out Vipers and vehicles and flags and Cobra banners and all this kind of stuff. And you've got these guys in the foreground with tons of C4 with little kind of kind of almost like homemade charges and phones attached to them, and there's like a ton of like Fadeaway's got a ton in her bag, and she's kind of like coming down from the ceiling. Tiger's like handing some to Scarlet, who's like attaching them to the treads of this vehicle. It's a beautiful cover, isn't it?
It's really nice. I mean, Freddie has done some great artwork on this particular run, and if you've been lucky enough to kind of pick up his variants, you've got a nice score in your collection, this is a great cover, and it's something that we see a lot in not just in Freddy's covers, but a lot of the covers for this particular series. It's almost like you're looking through something to see the bigger picture.
Yeah.
You've got some stuff going on in the foreground, and then there's either through a window or through a reflection, or you get this greater sense of the action that's going on. So that kind of visually, that sort of theme is recurring here, and it looks super.
I love these kind of like redesigned almost Cobra Hiss tank type vehicles they've got kind of going on. The ones like that you can see right in the background where they're all kind of standing on and around, they look really cool. I'd like to see like a full proper shot of one of these in, this kind of redesigned style. They're really gorgeous.
I want to see them in action. Absolutely. You get these re-envisioned Hiss tanks from time to time that are pretty awesome, and it would be great to see them as toys. And I'm reminded of the Hiss tanks in the movie G.I. Joe Retaliation, where those Hiss tanks were pretty badass looking. Not very fast. You wouldn't call them high speed, but they certainly looked pretty killer. Could have made some great, translated really well into toys for sure.
They actually mentioned it's a high-speed Sentry in the film as well. So, but they kind of got absolutely obliterated by the Ripper tank, didn't they, in Retaliation? Okay.
Junk, yes.
And in actual fact, it's funny you should mention that, because the cover of Chris Evenhouse's cover A reminds me of The Rock standing on top of that Ripper tank, holding that huge machine gun. And so yeah, it's interesting that we've got like some weird parallels going on with the movie franchises there. But anyway, yeah, that's cover A and cover B. Absolutely top level work there, and in this case it's quality over quantity in terms of the covers. So let's get into the actual issue, because this has been one we've been like dying to get into. We got an advance copy of this. Thank you to IDW and Paul Aller for getting this to us way before it was released. We kind of also, we didn't want to release anything. We didn't want to record this like immediately and get it out there. We wanted people to actually get a chance to read it and soak it in for themselves. We don't want to kind of like necessarily spoil it for everyone immediately. It's been out for a week now, and it's been out on digital even longer than that, so we kind of like feel like there's been enough time. So we get into Castlefall. Now, we've basically been like leading up to this point. It's interesting that we start here with a scene that we're all too familiar with, and that's Tiger and Scarlet in like fight training. Similar kind of layout to the panels that Chris has done in previous scenes with the two of them fighting. And in this particular beginning, we get Tiger kind of questioning Scarlet and asking if she's all right. And, like there's a concern, isn't there, within the G.I. Joe team that she's covering the pain of everything that's been going on with humour.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the things that's really, from the outset of this series, we know that Duke and Scarlet are very close. And when Duke was killed off in the first few pages of this series, Scarlet has been having a tough time dealing with that.
Yeah.
And she's been taking that out on her team a lot. And in these particular sparring matches that we see between Tiger and Scarlet, she beats the living out of him every single chance she gets. And the assumption is that she's doing this to everybody in her team. But it's at a point where it's kind of almost come full circle. Tiger is, become much more proficient in the sparring, but he's, he has this rapport with Scarlet, and he's letting her know, look, we actually care about you, and we're kind of worried. And there's this really nice bit of banter going on between the two characters, and then Tiger lands a punch. The first time he's landed a punch in 11 episodes, and it's like, come on!
Yeah, no, that's brilliant. Right at the end, just doink. And then obviously we come straight out of that massive reveal of Scarlet getting caught in the face by Tiger there. And that's interesting actually, because obviously we'll come to it when we get to it, but this intro, there's a reason for it. It kind of, there's a theme running through this issue, and it's obviously kind of, one of those things that this something that Paul does. He'll start off with something that is always revisited towards the end of the issue, and it's always tied together with a particular theme, and in this case it is the situation that Scarlet's going through. But immediately after turning the page, we go from that kind of like, it's not a slow intro, but it's like a very kind of methodical, thought out process, going through the panels, and then you turn the page and it is bang, action. We've got a car chase, we've got two Joe vehicles on the back of basically chasing this kind of it's like it's like a Cobra version of the APC or the ATC, and you've got these kind of like almost like vamp vehicles, haven't you, that the Joes have got kind of like chasing them. And we've got Roadblock Tiger, Frontier, and Lady J in one vehicle, and in the other we're introduced to Crankcase, which is really cool. Obviously, a very classic character who drove the Ore Striker in the the original vintage line. And then you've got like Rock and Roll, Lightfoot, and Covergirl. So I'm happy we get another bit of Lightfoot in here. We're getting a little bit more with the teams. Scarlet and Fadeaway are kind of at the base, and they're all kind of communicating at this point. And they're basically trying to chase down Dr. Mindbender. That's the information they have is telling them that Dr. Mindbender's in here, and they're trying to catch him.
Yeah, I mean, look, this is not like everything visually changes. You turn the page, the colors are like bang. It's a totally different color palette. It's almost that you have to do a double take. Like, did I accidentally turn 2 pages here by mistake? Because it just takes you right out of that first scene. And obviously this is a flashback. We're flashing back to some previous action before this kind of sparring sequence between Scarlet and Tiger. We've got the 2 Joe vehicles, as you say. They remind me of the Ninja Combat Cruisers that came with the Retaliation toy line. And I mean, and that is totally an APC that they're going after there, 100%. And then in the, you've got Lady J's driving one of the, if we're going to call them the Ninja Combat Cruisers. She's driving one of them. And just the way Chris Evenhouse draws his characters when they're in action, it's just, there's so much effort. She's swinging that wheel right around. There's a real sense of kind of just putting real effort into the driving to keep up with the Cobra APC. And Tiger is like so excited, you can't get away, Snake. He's
Brainy
like real,
Snake.
Brainy Snake. And then it goes back to base, and Scarlet's like is on the comms. She's like, well, you can celebrate when we've completed the mission.
Yeah.
So, it's this kind of nice kind of back and forth between Covergirl and Scarlet and Crankcase, and they're really bringing us up to speed on kind of what's going on here. And then even, back in the HQ, while Scarlet's kind of overseeing all of this, Fadeaway is keeping tabs on screen on how the operation is progressing. And, she sums up for us that they've got Dr. Venom, they're going to get Dr. Mindbender.
Yeah.
They've got the bat schematics, they've destroyed a bat factory, and she says it can't actually be this easy.
Easy,
even though what the Joe team have gone through over the last 10 issues has been anything but easy. Like, there's been so many casualties, and even crisis within the core unit themselves, but to get where they're at just feels like a massive win for Fadeaway.
Absolutely. And something you mentioned there about Brittany Pear's colouring is amazing, and the colours on this page are just so vibrant, and the fact that she does this thing where it's like you know exactly which scene you're looking at based on that colour palette for each place, and it's such a simple, obvious thing, but she does it so well that you're not just, I've read comics in the past where the colours in so basically the same kind of theme all the way through, so that when you flip back and forth between places, you only really are knowing the difference between characters. And I think the fact that she kind of gives Scarlet and Fadeaway that greenish background, and then the actual action, in the vehicles, it's all this kind of bright orange. It looks like a fruit salad, those little sweets, the kind of purple and orange, kind of like pink and orange like colors, just absolutely beautiful. I'll flash up a fruit salad for all of our American viewers that don't know what the hell I'm talking about. They're these little chewy sweets. There were blackjacks and fruit salads, and fruit salads.
Yes!
Fruit salads are orange and pink, and blackjacks are all black, and they make your mouth go black as well. It's amazing. Anyway, enough of that. As we turn the page, they're still obviously in, they're right up the back of this Cobra APC. The back door just drops down, and out fly 5 battle android troopers, and Covergirl's like, reverse, 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 reverse. And then we see this like almost cinematic, like something out of a Transformers or a superhero movie. And
I was thinking, the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
whoa.
Proper superhero move. This, isn't it? Like the bat jumps up. You've got these two bats basically in shot. One of them is like arching back with his fists over his head, and the other one's kind of like almost like he's got his arms out like he's flying. And as they both come to hit the truck, the one with his fist just pounds into the front, the hood of this combat cruiser, and look at the way that's drawn. That like he's even done the suspension almost coming off its wheels on the back.
Yeah,
you know, the physics
and
going into that
just kind of scoops up behind it. Whoosh.
Yeah,
it's it's just brilliantly done, and they've got the second bat coming in, midair. It's a fantastic piece of artwork. What an amazing panel!
It's cinematic visually, isn't it? It's so beautifully done and well executed. That page, I think that's my favorite panel of the entire issue.
That is beautiful. And of course, the battle android troopers effectively take out one of the Ninja Combat Cruisers, knock it over on its sides. They're basically about to rip the whole thing apart and get in at the Joe team inside. And then I think it's Rock and Roll as it jumps up and shoves an explosive device in the face of one of the bats. And I mean, it's just real visceral action. While this is happening, Roadblock is struggling to break out whatever kind of firepower they have in their particular vehicle, and it's jammed. He can't get it open, so he basically just rips it out of its kind of mechanism. The roof opens up, and we just get this amazing scene of this kind of debris and stuff kind of flying by, and he's like, wrench, and Roadblock just manhauls basically a Madeuse up out of the back of the truck, and he just lets loose on the bats. It's visually fantastic.
It's incredible. I love when he says, "Who needs a tripod when you've got me?" I love that. That's hilarious. And you just you see that shot of him just like letting loose and the bats just getting absolutely torn to shreds. And he's like, that'll slow them down. And then obviously we flip over to the other team, and it's Lightfoot, Crankcase, Covergirl, and Rock and Roll. They're kind of like out of the truck, and they're all alive, and they're on foot, just hot footing it. And they said, we're getting away, you guys continue the mission. Scarlet then obviously says, don't worry, an extraction team is on the way for you guys, and stay alive and you'll be home soon. And then that's when Fadeaway loses visual on the other team. And this gets really interesting now, because this is where we get a little bit of a twist, isn't it?
Yeah. So they've effectively gone, subterranean here in the pursuit. They've gone into some sort of, underground bypass or whatever. And again, beautiful work by Brittany Peer. The colours just boom, change again. And again, Lady J is kind of hot on the heels of the APC, and she rams the vehicle, effectively taking it out of, taking it off the road, bringing it to a stop. The Joes jump out. Lady J guns down the Viper, just boom.
No messing.
And then they basically, come on, Mindbender, get your ass out here. We're taking you in. And as the backdoor panel lowers, Major Blood is revealed in the back of the APC.
And, if that wasn't shocking enough, out comes his boot, smacks Frontier. He knocks him kind of over. What's interesting, actually, in this panel, I really like how this panel moves. As he's stepping out of the truck, he's like eyeing up Tiger for a fight. And you can see Tiger's kind of like a bit pensive. He's a bit like kind of, a bit apprehensive to kind of get stuck in. And Roadblock comes flying out of nowhere, takes, grabs Major Blood and just throws him into like the wall. And he's like, bloody hell.
Even the wall is starting to shatter.
Oh, no, really absolutely trounces him into the bloody wall. And then you've got Lady J and Roadblock kind of standing over him, guns drawn. But Blood gets the upper. He grabs Lady J's trouser leg and he kind of like flips around, takes her, has his gun out. She's still got her gun on her, and kind of puts it to her head. So he's got her as like a hostage. And Tiger's like, you won't do anything. We're all just going to. And he's like, shut up, Writhy. And he's like, how do you know my name? And he's like, intelligence, a concept with which you are clearly unfamiliar, which I thought was really, again, like an interesting callback to when he had Tiger's information folder on his desk in that Major Blood issue.
And here's something that we don't call this out enough when we talk about this series. The dialogue that Paul Aller writes between the characters is absolutely brilliant.
It's great.
I mean, the witty one-liners, the kind of the smart-ass returns. This Paul Aller knows.
Paul will enjoy that, because you've basically just said he's a smart-ass, witty retorter. I think he'll enjoy that. No, you're right. It's absolutely spot on, and his dialogue, his writing is really top notch. And it's another one of these moments. Like, I feel like we're not bogged down with tons and tons of exposition and lots of explanation. Like, the story is moving so comfortably and smooth, and everyone knows what's going on. It's easy to follow, but there's complexity to it in terms of what's going on here. And at this stage now, Blood just grabs Jay and he's like, right, she's my, she's going to get me out of here. She's my hostage. And she's pissed off because she's like 26 months of undercover work. And he's like, and it was beautiful work. You had us all fooled, which is why I have to take you in. And you see Frontier's like, no, like, he's kind of got the upper hand. And we get an even bigger twist here now, don't we?
Well, even just what I want to say there, on the 26 months of undercover work, what blew her cover was that she kissed Frontier.
Yeah.
That was what blew it. The fact that they snogged each other and Mindbender recovered consciousness in time to see them snogging. And that's what gave her cover up. And obviously, which is exactly why Blood was in the APC and not Mindbender. So the Joes were actually led into a trap.
Yeah. But interesting because he's basically sprung this trap, not at the disadvantage of the Joes, but actually like against Cobra. And that's what we find here. He's telling Lady J, who's like, putting up a real fight, which as you'd expect her to do so. And he's like, just calm down. You're perfectly safe. And so are all your little rebel friends. I didn't shoot anyone. I cleared the route of civilians, ordered the bats to take out one vehicle and allow an escape. I put a lot of effort into keeping you all alive. And she's like, why? And he's like, because you're all too low rank to suit my needs. Now get on the radio and here's what you're going to say. He basically wants to set up a meeting with Scarlet, and that's exactly what happens next.
Yes, I mean this is definitely a twist. I wasn't expecting Blood to be in the back of the APC, and I certainly wasn't expecting them to be rocking up to G.I. Joe headquarters when I turned the page. So this is kind of a double whammy of kind of reveals here in the space of like 3 pages.
This is Stalker as well, isn't it, with Scarlet? We haven't really seen much of Stalker in all of the issues, so it's nice that he gets a little bit of page time in this issue as well, isn't it?
I mean, I really like the Stalker character in this particular series. He doesn't get a lot of mission time. I think there was one mission where they...
Dreadnoks, was it? Was it the Dreadnokistan issue?
The Dreadnok, when they went to Dreadnokistan.
Yeah.
Well, outside of that, he's just been, running the show from HQ. So he's not seen a lot of field action, nor Scarlet, actually, for that matter.
True.
So Jay brings in Major Blood and he basically proposes that he's going to work as a double agent for G.I. Joe. He'll go back in, he'll basically pick up where Lady J left off, and he'll report back intel to G.I. Joe. And he explains, look, he's become disillusioned with Cobra. Cobra Commander's a nut job. I want to rule some people. I want to be in control. And if Cobra Commander wrecks everything, which he will because he's insane, then there's going to be nobody left for me to control. So, he reaches his hand. What do you say?
Yeah.
Scarlet.
Well, this is an even bigger shock, isn't it? Like, you're not expecting this. And she just pops a cap in his chest. And one thing I want to say, like a couple of things I really enjoyed about this particular phase of play. One is the classic rendezvous in a car park trope, which I think gives this kind of like a 24 vibe, or like one of those kind of like TV shows, spy kind of vibe. And obviously the color again has changed, and Brittany's done this great bit of skill here, like coloring wise, to kind of make everything really somber and intriguing. And also there's just the color speaks to every scene that we see, and it's just incredible. But then like you say, Scarlet just shoots him point blank range and goes, I say no. It's just like that. And there's even that kind of like the dove flying in the in the background of the silhouette shot. Very John Woo movie kind of, again, like thematically, isn't it?
Like, I just got to highlight some brilliant pieces of work by Chris here. He places the doves or the pigeons, early on in the scene. We kind of see them on the ledge. And then when Blood puts the offer to Scarlet and he reaches out the hands, to make a pact with her, there's 2 panels there where you've got Scarlet thinking, and then the panel where she makes her decision.
Yeah, the eyes open up, don't they? Yeah.
It's just a genius piece of art by Chris. And then that silhouette of the
Yeah.
And she puts the cap in his chest, which is pretty much what Blood did to Duke back in issue 1.
Yeah.
And then you've got the doves scattering at that point. It's fantastically done.
And then we flip over almost immediately to, well, it initially looks like we're kind of in some sort of Cobra territory. Obviously, everywhere is Cobra territory because they've taken over the world. But in this particular sense here, like it's actually General Hawk and Scarlet having this meeting that she's saying it's a tactical decision, and he's like, I just don't know if I believe you. And she kind of explains this is Major Blood. We're talking about the man who, and he's like, killed Duke. He's insinuating that she's done this in revenge, and she's like, no, the man responsible for the deaths of thousands. 10 to 1 odds he was playing us and all this kind of stuff. So she thought that she couldn't really trust him, so she made the decision to shoot him. This is another little twist as well, but we'll find out a bit later on, but I won't spoil it yet. But she just effectively thought he was going to betray them. And he was like, well, okay, you're going to be taken over from me at some point, so I'll let you make those decisions. And, if you're wrong, you'll figure it out in time. So it's like there's a nice thing here of Hawk kind of going, he's questioning her, but at the same time, it's really because he knows that she's going to be taking over from him very soon.
And again, that's something else worth commenting on. I mean, General Hawk in this run, he's clearly an elderly general.
Yeah.
He has many decades experience under his belt, and he's possibly very close to retirement. Hawk, that we've seen maybe going back to the 80s or in some of the other G.I. Joe universes, he's a younger guy. He sees a lot more field action with the team.
Yeah. And
they would draft in Joe Colton if they needed kind of an older, more elderly type general character in some of the comics. So, and I'm thinking specifically, Fred Van Lente's run way back. Paul Allor kind of, collaborated on some of that stuff too. So it's nice seeing Hawk in the older role here. And yeah, it's a setup that he's going to step down and Scarlet's going to step up effectively to become the leader of G.I. Joe.
And then we get Mindbender going to Major Blood's place because obviously he's been asked to look after his dog, Sheila. And this is kind of important, this phase, because he's left something on Sheila for Mindbender to find. And what's funny about this little scene is how Mindbender's saying, like, your human called me yesterday and made me promise to take care of you should anything happen to him. And maybe I could slice open your brain in the process, do a couple of experimental, non-lethal, of course, so I keep my word. And obviously, it shows that he's got this little, it's like a USB stick, isn't it? And he's like, or maybe not. And it's got Castlefall written on it. So he goes, what's this? And he takes it straight to Cobra Commander and the Baroness and Demon. And he's like, it's a plan for the bats to swarm and destroy G.I. Joe headquarters. So, like, he's basically, it's like a plan to instigate, a full takedown of the G.I. Joe headquarters. So Cobra Commander basically effectively says, right, Baroness, you check it out, and then if it's worth doing, we'll run it.
Well, what's great about this here, right, is that we don't see enough, or I feel we haven't seen enough kind of Cobra Commander or Baroness kind of action in this particular run. But when you do get them, you get some great moments here. And Mindbender's kind of, burst. It's like feels like he's burst into the office.
Yeah.
And he's detailing his plan, and he's claiming that this is my plan. I wanted to put this together, before he can finish his sentence, the Baroness cuts him off and says, it's way outside your lane,
Doc Monocle. Yeah, this is actually an important point, actually, because he's taking credit for this rather than telling them that Major Blood was behind it. And that does actually come up a bit later on, but I agree with you on this one. I think this is one of those things where he's come in, he's getting ahead of himself, and he's basically saying, like, we can do this. We can get we can get all the bats to kind of like take out everyone at G.I. Joe headquarters. And Demon's like, G.I. Joe headquarters, you know where it is? And he's like, only recently. I wanted to put together this assault before, and that's where she's like saying, way outside your lane, Doc Monocle. But then like Cobra Commander realizes the tactical advantage here, and he's just like, no, check it out. If it works, we're doing it. And then, his patience with them is at an end. So that's what happens. And then we swing back to the Scarlet and Tiger fight, the training battle. And this is where we see again, like, they're talking to each other, but they were also getting these really cool panels of the actual fighting going on. She's kind of getting a bit, and she's annoyed that he's hit him. You hit me. And he's like, yeah, well, we've been sparring for a year. No biggie. She's like, no, big deal. You don't get to play this off as nothing. That was impressive, Tiger. And she kind of flips him onto his back and starts kicking his ass still. And she basically says to him that she thinks he was going to die like immediately. And it's really important that he's improving and all this kind of stuff. And then he's like, wait, you thought I was going to die like immediately? And she's like, huh? And he's like, wow. Like, so he's like, this is what I'm talking about. You're hiding behind this, like, this humor. And she explains, like, right, because I laugh to hide the pain. And let me tell you something, Tiger, there's an awful lot of pain. So, this is how she copes. And, even though he's worried about her, this is how she's dealing with things.
I love that. It's like, we actually don't need to worry. She's got a lot of pain. She knows she's got a lot of pain. But we know from the previous issues,
exactly.
She knows how to deal with this.
Yeah.
And it'll always be part of her, but nobody really needs to worry about Scarlet at the end of the day.
If you really kind of break this issue down, you'll find a callback, I think, to almost every single issue that's come before it. Like an actual on-the-nose callback where, obviously this panel structure and the layout with Scarlet and the fight with Tiger, goes back all the way to like maybe issue 1 or 2. I can't remember exactly which one, but it's happened
issue
before.
2, yeah. Where they and she basically mops the floor with Tiger, like he's got, and he keeps coming. He said he won't quit.
Yeah, exactly.
So she just lets him keep coming at her, and he ends up in the sick bay because he's had lumps knocked out.
Exactly. We've had callbacks to the Major Blood issue. We've had callbacks to the initial issue where Major Blood took Duke out and shot him and killed him in the first issue. We've had callbacks to all sorts of different issues that we've already seen. Like, obviously, this is also a callback to Scarlet's solo issue where she was dealing with post-traumatic stress disorder. So, there's all of these like really nice callbacks to all these. Dr. Venom's mention, obviously that calls back to the Chuckles bomb strike and the Dr. Venom issue. So there's all these like cute callbacks. The Bats obviously call back to Dreadnoughtistan and to the Tunnel Rat issue. So there are all these like really nice moments and comments and all sorts of things like that. And then we get kind of another one coming up now where we find out that Major Blood isn't dead. He's in hospital. He's obviously got a lot of bandages around his chest. His body armor kept him alive effectively, and Dr. Mindbender's in the room with him, and they're talking. And this is where we get this really interesting, subtle element of the story happen.
Oh yeah, I mean, I have to say, when this is revealed that he's still alive, I absolutely love the panel. He's lying there in the bed, and he looks pissed off.
Get well soon. Look at that card.
Get well soon card, which presumably Mindbender brought with him.
Yeah, hilarious. And this is another thing. Like these two characters have had like this weird relationship going forward. They've been friends in an odd way. Like, since that Major Blood issue, we've seen their blossoming friendship. And what is really interesting here, this is Dr. Mindbender effectively tells Blood, "Don't worry, your plan's in effect. I've got it going." And he's like, now? And he's like, oh, don't get too excited. When it didn't look like you were going to pull through, I may have taken some of the credit for it. And that makes Blood kind of laugh. And he's like, am I missing something? And we'll come back to that in a second. But then we flip over and we see the Bats are not actually approaching G.I. Joe headquarters. They're infiltrating Cobra HQ. And we see these two front desk kind of guys going like, hey, I just lost contact with. And then the Bats burst in and kill everybody.
Yes, this is just, again, totally not expected. I was expecting, what you would expect, which is that the G.I. Joe HQ was going to be raided by a load of bats, almost like, Terminator style, and they're, and basically G.I. Joe get run out of town. The exact opposite happens. You see the bats marching up to Cobra HQ outside, then it cuts to in at the reception desk, and boom, 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 the receptionists are taken out. Security guards come down and they're taken out in the shootout. And then it cuts back to the pit, or presumably what we're calling the pit now, the G.I. Joe headquarters.
Yeah, and this is where, Fadeaway comes running in and he's like, Scarlet, we've got an encoded message for you. It's from Major Blood. From who? And basically we realise that, she realises quickly that we have to take advantage of the situation. Major Blood has given us a massive advantage now. We attack. Get every contingency, everybody, get everything. I'll get Hawk. You gather the teams. She's like, which ones? All of them. we're rolling out, and the next panel you see floods of vehicles, helicopters, kind of, it looks like in the background like a redesigned Warthog kind of vehicle. Then you've got the Hummers and the Vamps and the tanks and the two like kind of ATVs and everything. So they're literally everything is going out to press this advantage. And this is where we find Cobra Commander Baroness and some low-level Cobra kind of techs in this room, and they're like, what's going on? So it seems like everyone, the outposts are being destroyed all over the place, tearing down our infrastructure. It's bats and it's rioters and it's Joes, and we're basically under an absolute storm right now.
Yeah, it's bad news, bad day for Cobra in Chicago for sure. Everything is just kind of suddenly falling apart. But Cobra Commander is so cool.
He's calm,
the
isn't
Baroness
he? Yeah.
is so cool. Like, they don't look phased. The Vipers at the controls are like kind of freaking out. Then the door opens, a bat comes in, takes out one of the Vipers at the controls. The Baroness grabs the other Vipers, holding it like a shield. And the Viper's like, "Oh, I'm on your side, down with Cobra."
Yeah, is it trying to plead to the bat that he's not a Cobra guy, and then she just breaks his neck, which is hardcore, and then uses like you say as a shield. They rush into that little lift, and just as the doors are closing, the bat gets its arm in with the gun and just like tries to shoot as much as it can, pinches the arm, and then obviously takes it off. And it's they're just left, and that's just a funny panel where they're just in the lift, like, and you can see what's really interesting here is that you see the levels change on the side of the the doors, near the doors where you've got like the buttons, and obviously at first it says -1, they're in the basement, then it says 0 as the arm gets like crushed into the floor, and then you see on level 3 it's just in the lift with them, and he's like, well, that was bracing. I just found that really a beautiful panel, really beautiful.
This Cobra Commander is cool as ice, and I have to say, kind of like that.
Yeah,
he's not like the Cobra Commander, say, in Larry's universe. He's a bit of a nut job, and he tends to get into a rage very easily when things don't go his way.
Yeah,
and which forces him to make stupid decisions. Which usually like throw everything at the problem, and it doesn't solve the problem. This guy is not phased. He is not phased at all by what's going on here. He's really cool. But anyway, it cuts back to Major Blood and Dr. Mindbender in the hospital. And Major Blood is explaining to Dr. Mindbender what's basically after happening.
Exactly. Like he's effectively saying, like, so you can see now that it was designed to like destabilize Cobra headquarters, disguised as an assault on the rebel base. And he's like, but that makes you a traitor. And he's like, I'm a pragmatist, and I decided that if I couldn't chip away at Cobra slowly, and if my life was no longer a concern, I should do all I can to make one final blow. That of course you were supposed to give me credit for it, and I was supposed to be dead. And Mindbender's trying to think his way out of this. He's like, they're going to kill me because they're going to think I did all this. And he's like, let me think about this. I can think my way out of just about anything. And you see Major Blood like slowly getting out of his bed. And you can see like pulls all of his stuff over, races over to Mindbender. He's like, what are you doing? He's like, no, I'm your friend, Sebastian. I'm your friend. And he's grabbing him by the throat, smashes him against the window, out the window, and just basically pushes him out of like however high they are up. And he says, yes, you are. And you just see Major Blood standing in the window. And obviously Mindbender, I guess, or we assume, is dead on the ground. Now, I have a few little theories about this. I think, and I don't have any inside info, I just have a feeling that this might not be the last we see of Dr. Mindbender, and we might see some sort of, I'm thinking like cyborg, or something where they kind of like want to try and keep him alive somehow. And we get something like the vintage, like version 2 Dr. Mindbender or something like that. What do you think about that, Brian?
What's obvious here is that, so Blood has betrayed Cobra.
Yeah.
But thanks to Mindbender's enthusiasm to claim glory, it now looks as if Mindbender has been the traitor and betrayer of Cobra. And it's important for Blood now to kill him, to take him out, so that Blood, obviously, be no repercussions from Cobra on the Blood,
yeah,
and he can continue destabilizing Cobra from the inside, now that it looks like he's going to recover from his wounds. So that's his motive for taking Mindbender out. If Mindbender lives, Major Blood's he's going to be in hot water effectively.
Yeah.
With Cobra, because Mindbender knows the truth. He was duped, you could say, by Major Blood. So if he does come back, though, in some kind of a cyborg scenario, I can totally see where Cobra Commander might feel, okay, Mindbender, you betrayed us, but you're a genius and absolutely essential to the Cobra program. So if we can salvage your remains in any way, shape, or form and still continue to use you, we will totally do that.
It was just a side thought more than anything. It's probably not the case. He's probably dead, like, clearly. But I like the thought of, especially in reading Paul's, the way he kind of structures stories and the way he has characters kind of die. And I mean, we thought for a while that Duke was going to come back in some sort of zombie state. We did think that was going to happen. That was something that crossed our minds. But obviously that was kind of put to bed when we had Duke on the table with the bullet hole in his head and Mindbender moaning about, why did you shoot him in the head? We could have salvaged that and we could have got something out of him. And
exactly.
Yeah, things like that.
Because that's one of the things. Mindbender, like the seeds have been set that the brain can still be used if the body is destroyed. So Mindbender has that technology in place, and obviously now Cobra have that technology. So it's totally plausible.
And
that
they've got
Venom.
They've got Dr. Venom is still alive, isn't he?
Well, he is, but he's in Joe custody at the moment.
Yeah, but he's not dead. So I've got a feeling that, like, there could be a story further on where Dr. Venom is bust out some sort of prison. That would be something I'd love to see. And like him take over where Mindbender was, and maybe even trying to, do some crazy to bring Mindbender back. I think that would be brilliant. Yeah. But coming back to this story, we see rioting in the streets because people are basically, there's an uprising is happening because Cobra looks to be toppling. We see the Joes fly overhead in a helicopter. Frontier and Roadblock are discussing the fact that, hey, we should be down there, and Frontier's like, hey, we're not rioters and we're not riot control. We've got our job to do. So they head to the Cobra headquarters, and as they get there, they see Cobra Commander and Baroness hot-footing it towards this helicopter, and it's like, there we go, just in time. So they land, and they've got, they've basically got Cobra Commander and the Baroness pinned between the wall and them, and Demon, who's in the helicopter with a Viper, she's like, don't you dare move, don't you dare fly away. We've got to wait I'm already leaving my family behind in this city. I'm not going to leave my commander behind as well. And then the Joes actually unload on them. Like, they start shooting at them. And obviously the Cobra Commander's got bulletproof gear on and everything. And it deflects off his helmet. It's like, the helmet isn't just for show, terrorist. And then you see Roadblock with the friggin' machine gun again in the helicopter, which I'm surprised the helicopter can lift the two of them. They're huge hulking buggers. And he looks at them and he says, oh my. And then you just see him unleash, and they run away. They kind of hide around the corner kind of thing. Roadblock gets hit. And then we flip over and we see that Demon has got her, has taken that shot and kind of incapacitated Roadblock.
Yes. I mean, that's actually really... This is a really great sequence here. I love how Cobra Commander's his visage he's got these two big circles reflected in his visor that makes it look like his eyes are really wide when he goes, oh my, when the gun comes out. And Demon as well, it's a great piece. The Viper's about to just say, I'm getting the hell out of here. And Demon's like, no way, I'm leaving my family behind. There's another throwback, by the way, because we see family life earlier in this series. Not leaving my family behind, or I am leaving them behind, but I'm not going to leave my commander behind as well. And we see her loyalty to Cobra Commander here. She takes a shot, disarms Roadblock, doesn't take him out, but he's disarmed. And that gives Cobra Commander the chance he needs to make a break effectively.
Yeah, and they put the ladder down to grab the commander. Frontier chases after him, gets kicked in the face by Cobra Commander. Tiger, in meanwhile, is running after the Baroness, bumps into her. She takes a swing at him. He avoids it and then punches her in the face. And she says, you impudent child. What, you think I shouldn't hit a lady? I think you should not touch a superior. She starts taking a jacket off, ready to fight. If that isn't the sexiest thing I've ever seen, I don't know what is.
Absolutely. Oh man, I tell you, it's this is one of the great things about how Chris draws women in this series is that they're they're
bloody
still feminine.
gorgeous.
They're still very feminine, but at the same time, they are powerful.
Yeah,
And
powerful,
you see the
strong.
physique of
Yeah.
the Baroness, you see the physique on Scarlet, and
Very similar builds, aren't they?
very similar. And of course, we go into this brilliant sparring action between Tiger and the Baroness, and she basically she beat the shit out of him.
Yeah.
Punch in the face, grabs him by the throat, headbutts him in the face,
Knees him in the
knees him in the
bollocks.
groin. I mean, everything.
People pay
that
good money for that. People pay good money for that. What I like about this is the parallels it draws to the Scarlet fight. So obviously there's that aspect that's drawing the issue together as well. So it's like all that, the culmination of all of the training is now coming into play. And even though he's getting his ass handed to him, he knows how to deal with that. And he ends up just biting her ear, doesn't he? He's like literally just like friggin' Mike Tyson's her.
No sophisticated, combat moves here. Just a simple ear bite.
And it's like, my ear, you fight like a filthy animal. And then you see off panel, yes. And I taught him everything he knows. And then it's Scarlet standing there, and you think, oh my God, it's going to be the Scarlet Baroness fight. And Baroness like, fine, let's. And then you see her go, no. And then she just legs it towards the helicopter.
They were totally going to leave her.
Yeah.
They were totally going to leave her. And that's why she chose not to fight Scarlet. It was like, the no is like,
don't leave me here. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And obviously the damage caused by Roadblock's Marduce means that the helicopter kind of flies off, but can't kind of maintain at any altitude, and ends up dipping into the water just near the buildings. And in the meanwhile of that happening, you see a Viper kind of looking up, smashed kind of visor, just looking out. You see him kind of like lose all hope. And this guy's like, Cobra provides, and he's like got an axe, and he's obviously fighting for Cobra, and this Viper just goes, not anymore, and shoots him. And just throws the gun down. So the Viper's given up on Cobra, and he's turned against any of the people that were fighting for Cobra, and that the rioting continues. Now, what this is interesting, like the Joes are kind of like kind of making their way back down to ground, and they're like, do we need to stop this rioting? And they're like, I don't think we need to. Like, just let them do it. This is like months and months of anguish, and I'm guessing years. It's been years, hasn't it, that they've been under the control, I guess.
Well, the situation's been brewing for years, but I think Chicago, when we go back to issue 1, which was like a year in the timeline, a year previous to
it's
this.
It's about a year, yeah, okay.
If Chicago had fallen maybe about a year or so. So it's a couple of years under the boot of Cobra for sure.
And it's at that point that Hawk brings the Cobra flag down and puts the American flag up. Very kind of symbolic gestures there that we've seen in Joe kind of media in the past. And I love that it's a HISS tank that's just absolutely on fire and trounced and everything. And basically Scarlet turns to Hawk and says, you should say something. And he's like, no, you should. And she just turns and she walks up to the top of this HISS tank and she goes, Cobra Commander is gone. Chicago is free for now. And that's something to celebrate. But believe me, I know that for many of you, any joy you experience will feel like a betrayal of those we lost. It will feel like you're hiding your grief away. And again, it's tying into what we saw at the beginning, and it's that grief that she's coping with. And she's explaining to them that grief and happiness coexist. They don't cancel each other out. Pain exists alongside joy, and it's just, in darkest of times, we must laugh, we must celebrate, we must grab hold of joy wherever we can. And that's what she was basically saying to Tiger at the beginning. So it ties in. Genius from Paul to kind of tie the whole issue together. And it's writing 101, yes, but it's so often missed in a lot of issues. And this is just so beautifully written that it kind of comes back to this point that she was, discussing with Tiger at the beginning of the issue.
100%. And it's a recurring theme that's been leading up to throughout the whole series. So this is a great moment of triumph for G.I. Joe, and then you turn the page, and the last panel is beautifully drawn, beautifully coloured, and it's Scarlet saying to the crowd, "Welcome to G.I. Joe." So they're basically going to be recruiting more people for the fight that's still ahead, because Cobra have not just Chicago under their boot in the USA. They've got like most of the USA under their control, and their influence extends across the globe. So this is quite a small victory. It's only one battle in a much bigger war.
I love that final panel with Scarlet's really striking. Is you've got CoverGirl, Frontier, Tiger, and Roadblock, who have been, steady kind of characters in it. She's probably been in, I would say, about 3 or 4 issues where she's been in kind of like the kind of, the forefront kind of thing, but she hasn't really had a kind of spotlight like some of the other characters have. So it's nice that, we're getting a bit more of her in this issue. And Frontier's been pretty solid all the way through. Tiger's been a constant, and Roadblock's been huge as well. So it's interesting kind of group of characters they chose for that final panel. But my God, that's striking, isn't it? And I love obviously the symbolism of the American flag behind them, and all that kind of jazz. Just an absolutely cracking issue, my man. What are your takeaways and your overalls on this one?
Oh, I mean, this has been I'm just going to say it, this has been the best G.I. Joe comic since its inception. And while, people who listen to the show or watch us on the show on YouTube, that we love Larry Hama's work. We're big fans of what Larry's been doing, and we've enjoyed kind of the highs and lows of the Real American Hero series. But I just think this is a step above. This is a cut above what Larry is doing. It's very different. If you're really invested in your 1980s nostalgia, this probably isn't going to be for you. But if you're open to a reinvention of G.I. Joe, some really great storytelling, some brilliant characters, and amazing artwork, which is what comics is all about, really, at the end of the day, then you should be reading this. If you've missed out on these first 11 episodes, I'm pretty sure there's going to be a trade paperback coming out in the future. And even though I've got the 11 issues, I'm going to be picking up the trade because this has that lovely kind of continuous feel of kind of reading through the whole arc in one book.
Absolutely, yeah.
It's been a magnificent run. I mean, I just can't sing the praises highly enough of Chris, Brittany, and Paul. I think as a creative team, it's what a coming together of talent it's been. And I know other artists have worked on this series, but Chris, Brittany, and Paul are obviously the core, and it's just a phenomenal piece of comic book creation.
How many potatoes?
We're going 100 potatoes. Just make it happen.
Okay, I've got to come up with 100 potato Photoshop. That's not a problem. No, I agree. I think it's been an absolutely sensational run so far. Like I hope we get more. I don't, because obviously there's a feeling of closure to a degree. There's obviously there are some threads that are left open, but threads that are left, that's kind of mixing metaphors right there. There's some threads that are left exposed, I should say. It's still like within this little kind of this little universe, it's a nice complete story. We start with Tiger's kind of inclusion into the team and how he kind of gets recruited, and Duke's death, and the explanation of what's going on with the world and how Cobra have taken over. And then, we kind of develop that into seeing all of the characters involved and how they deal with this new world and how they cope with it, and how they attack and how they rebel against, clear like evil. And it's just brilliantly done and so well written, and the characters are also well developed. Couple of things I will say though, I do hope we get more, because we never got any more from that wonderful Snake Eyes reveal when Jinx was kicked out of the team and she walked into the dojo. Still haven't seen any more Snake Eyes, so that would be I think the next phase. You'd be probably leaning heavily into those characters. What has Jinx done since being kicked out of the team? What is her what are her missions with Snake Eyes going to kind of look like? That I'm really excited for if we can kind of continue with this. You've got aspects as well, like obviously the Major Blood Dr. Mindbender scenario. Like I said before, I feel like Mindbender probably isn't dead, or he'll be brought back in some way. You've got Dr. Venom. That's another element that I could see them kind of like going towards. Tunnel Rat.
Dr. Venom's going to be pissed because he was not happy about
Being
used and abused by
Bomb Strike.
Strike.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
he's going to be pissed with G.I. Joe.
So yeah, that's going to have some sort of storyline with Chuckles and Bomb Strike again. 100%. Yeah.
And of course, there was that Cobra Viper that Mindbender and Lady J were developing kind of new kind of living bat technology around.
Exactly. She just ran
That's out
straight.
there
She just
somewhere.
ran straight out the door. She's free. She's out in the world. So that's another aspect. 100%. There are all these little like things, and obviously Cobra Commander and Baroness. Yes, they dipped into the drink, but they're probably not dead. They've probably gotten away with this. Demon as well. So Demon, Baroness, Cobra Commander, Major Blood's still alive. I think Dr. Mindbender will be brought back. Dr. Venom's still alive. There's a large core of the characters that are still kicking about, you know. So
And let's
yeah,
not forget Destro, who's playing both
that's what I was
sides.
gonna say. Destro, we never got any. We never got any more from him, did we?
No, I mean he had made this fantastic reveal, I think, at the end of issue 2 or issue 3,
Yeah, that he was
where
supplying the Joes.
with arms. Then
Yeah.
we find out later that he's kind of working with Cobra to develop, their kind of new weapons technology.
Yep.
And of course, the Baroness, despite her loyalty to Cobra Commander, saw how quickly he was going to just drop her like a hot potato. She gets into that helicopter. She ain't happy. Where's she going to go next?
Exactly. So there's loads of like really like obvious things that I think still need to be addressed. So yeah, I'm really excited. I'm really hopeful that we get another bunch of comics out of this, because I'm not saying it doesn't it just feels like an end point. So I'm hoping that this continues, and yeah, it's just beautiful work from great writing from Paul, beautiful artwork from Chris, stunning colouring from Brittany Peer, and obviously all of the other artists and people involved, just along the way. It's been brilliant. So I'm also going to give it 100 potatoes. Thanks for that, Brian. Okay, we have really ramped up the comics burst recently, haven't we? Blimey! So we've got so with that one out of the way, we now have, I think, Dead Game 4 is next up for us. So we can kind of get that one done, and I think we should be in good. Well, and then Rom. So we get Rom issue 3 out the way too, and we're caught up because I think we can get that done, within the next couple of weeks. We've got a Disorder of Battle that's on. Almost, it's finished, so we just need to record it.
In the bag, baby.
Just need to record that one, you and I. But I've finally finished the bloody write-up on that. That is, mate, I'm not touching another big story for a while. We're doing Disorder of Battles. I'm going to have to be 1-page stories only for the next
bloody
however many. Oh my goodness me. As much as I love Operation Bloodhound, it's a cracking story. I think the part 3 that we will be covering very soon is a really solid part of that overall story. Like, that's not how the issues are broken up necessarily. We broke them up into 4 parts because it's just too big. But that third phase, I would say, of play is a really solid, interesting kind of story. So that's going to be a fun one for us to cover. But yeah, we get in there, aren't we, mate?
Absolutely. So, I mean, I'm thinking we will be back in the recording saddle next week anyway, for sure, to get Rom and Dead Game in the bag. Then we can basically knuckle down on a bit of Disorder Battle for all you Action Force fans out there.
It looks like we're going to have some absolute beauties with a Real American Hero as well soon. Like that aerial battle one looks so good. So good. So I'm looking forward to that. Dead Game 5 will finish up Dead Game. Obviously we've got 4 and we've got 4 out there, so we can do that one, but 5 is the one that will finish that finally. Yeah, it's looking brighter now. It's I feel like just before Christmas we got so far behind.
We're in a good place. And do you know what? It's a great time for comics. If you were on the fence before about getting into G.I. Joe comics, it's a great time. Just get off the fence and get a subscription. Jump in on Real American Hero. These kind of one-shot missions that Larry's doing. It's a great time to get on board. You don't have to worry about any backstory. You haven't missed out on anything. You can just get some great comics, great characters, great artwork. It's going to be trade paperbacks coming for the Paul Aller run. I hope and I presume they'll be coming. They're going to be magnificent to pick up, and hopefully we'll get a season 2 from Paul, Chris, and Brittany. That would be amazing.
Absolutely. And well, that brings us to the end of this one, Brian. Thank you so much, mate, for jumping on. Really appreciate it. And we'll be back again very soon, next week, in actual fact. So thanks very much, mate.
My pleasure.
That's it for this installment of the Full Force Comics Burst. Thank you to my awesome co-host, Brian Hickey. See you next time. And as always,
Full Force!
Make sure you get involved with the discussion by liking, sharing and commenting on these videos, and as always you can keep up with the show after listening by following on Twitter @The Full Force, liking the Facebook page facebook.com/The Full Force, and if you would like to contact the show you can message us on either of those platforms with feedback and questions. We also have a Patreon page, so if you want to show your support for the show, see your name up in lights on these videos, or enjoy exclusive bonus content, then check out patreon.com/The Full Force Podcast, or click the link on any of the posts this podcast appears in. Full Force.